Watching my classmates continue their education while I stayed behind was heartbreaking. I was jealous because I wanted that opportunity so badly. Sorry, guys. At 16, I began working as a maid for relatives because I was still underage and had very limited options. And many of you have been asking me to share my story too. Over the past few weeks, you've listened to David's childhood and life story. So many of you have said, "What about your story?" So today, I am going to share some of my journey with you. I was born in March 1992 in the beautiful province of Nueva Ecija, Philippines. Growing up, I can honestly say I had a happy childhood. Life wasn't easy, but it wasn't as difficult as it later became. My father was both a fisherman and a farmer, while my mother was a housewife who helped by selling the fish my father caught. They were both incredibly hardworking people. I have 4 siblings, so there are 5 of us in total, 3 boys and 2 girls. I am the 4th child, just like David is the 4th child in his family. Sometimes it feels like it was meant to be. When I was only 11 months old, our lives changed forever. On February 14, 1993, my father was involved in a terrible accident. He was riding his motorcycle when a 10-wheeler truck hit him. What made it even worse was that the driver didn't stop. After hitting my father, the driver ran away, turning it into a hit-and-run accident. My father's legs were severely damaged. Doctors initially wanted to amputate one of his legs because of the extent of the injuries. Thankfully, that never happened, and instead they inserted metal rods into his leg. One thing that has always stayed with me is what my father told us years later. After the accident, he was lying on the road badly injured and begging people to help him get to the hospital. But nobody wanted to help. He was left there suffering until someone finally took him to hospital. At the same time, my mother said I became seriously ill. My uncle took me to the hospital where my father was admitted because they thought I might not survive. They believed it could be the last time my father would see me. But by the grace of God, after that visit, I recovered, and so did my father. Even with severe injuries, my father refused to give up. He used crutches to walk and still continued fishing to provide for our family. Months turned into years, and although the damage to his legs is still visible today, he slowly recovered. So I attended our local primary school and did very well in my studies. I graduated with honors and was salutatorian, or the second highest honor in my class. Because of my grades, my parents enrolled me in a private high school where I received a 50% tuition discount. I continued to excel and became one of the top students in my class. For a while, everything seemed to be going well. Then life became difficult again. My parents raised pigs as an additional source of income. One day, one of our pigs gave birth to 10 piglets, but sadly, she ate all of them. In our local beliefs, When an animal eats its own young, it is considered a sign of misfortune. Not long after, when I was in my third year of high school, my mother became ill. At 47 years old, we believed she was pregnant because her stomach was growing and she showed many symptoms of pregnancy. However, she was also experiencing constant bleeding. When she finally saw a doctor, we discovered she had fibroids, or a tumor affecting her ovaries. She had to undergo surgery and her ovaries were removed. From that point on, life became much harder. Typhoons damaged our family income. We struggled financially and had to sell many of our belongings just to survive. By my fourth year of high school, I was due to graduate. However, we couldn't afford my remaining tuition fees. I almost didn't graduate because we owed 2,500 pesos, which is around 32 pounds today. The school would not allow me to receive my graduation gown and participate in the ceremony until the fees were paid. Just 2 hours before the graduation, I was still sitting at school, unsure if I would be allowed to walk across the stage. My parents desperately asked people if they could borrow money. Thankfully, some kind-hearted people helped us. And my parents managed to gather enough money. Because of their determination and the generosity of others, I was finally able to graduate. After graduation, I dreamed of going to university. I took entrance exams and achieved high scores, earning a full scholarship. Fortunately, even with free tuition fee, my parents simply could not afford my daily expenses, transportation or allowance. So I had to give up my dream of university. Watching my classmates continue their education while I stayed behind was heartbreaking. I was jealous because I wanted that opportunity so badly. Sorry, guys. At 16, I began working as a maid for relatives because I was still underage and had very limited options. And that was very bad. When I turned 18, I found work in an electronics company. However, after only 5 months, my health deteriorated. My blood pressure became dangerously low and I was forced to return home. Around that time, my father was still actively fishing and doing everything he could to support our family. He encouraged me to attend vocational school and I completed my studies there. When I was 20 years old, I found work as a sales clerk in a shopping mall in the Philippines. I stayed there until I was 22. During that time, I started looking for opportunities abroad. I applied to work in South Korea and studied the Korean language. I passed the necessary exams, but I had also applied for work in Qatar. I waited for both opportunities, wondering which visa would arrive first. In the end, the Qatar visa came before the Korean one, so I took a leap of faith, packed my bags, and flew to Qatar. Little did I know that decision would completely change my life, because it was in Qatar where I met my husband.